The explosions painted the sky orange and red, while Marcus Chen ran through the chaos with his medical kit bouncing against his hip. Smoke filled his lungs and made his eyes water, but he kept moving forward. Someone was screaming for help near the collapsed building, and Marcus never ignored a call like that. He jumped over a pile of rubble and slid behind a broken wall. 3 soldiers lay there wounded and bleeding. Marcus worked fast on their injuries while plasma bolts flew overhead and melted the concrete around them. His hands moved without thinking after 5 years of combat medicine. Stop the bleeding first. Check for shock. Stabilize and move. The ground shook from another explosion, and Marcus looked up to see the source. A massive armored figure stumbled between 2 burning vehicles about 30 meters away. The armor was nothing like human design. It had sharp angles and dark metal that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. The figure took 2 more steps and then collapsed against a pile of debris. Marcus knew that armor. Kathrani Empire. The enemy. The aliens who had been fighting humans for control of this mining colony for 6 months now. Every instinct told him to stay hidden and let the alien deal with its own problems. But his training ran deeper than instinct. He dragged the last wounded soldier behind. Cover where evacuation teams could find them. Then he checked his medical kit and started moving toward the fallen Kathrani warrior. His heart hammered in his chest. This was stupid. This could get him killed. But he had taken an oath to help anyone who was hurt, and that oath did not include exceptions. The alien was even bigger up close. 7 feet tall at least, and the armor made them look twice as wide. Marcus approached slowly with his hands visible and empty. He called out over the sounds of battle. "Hey, are you hurt?" "I am a medic. I can help." The armored figure moved suddenly, and a weapon came up to point at Marcus. He froze. The weapon barrel glowed with building energy. Marcus swallowed hard and kept his hands up. "I just want to help. Put the weapon down." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the weapon lowered slightly, and the alien reached up to their helmet. There was a hiss of releasing pressure, and the helmet came off. Marcus stared. The face was not what he expected. Scaled skin in shades of deep blue and silver. Large eyes with vertical pupils that locked onto him with sharp intelligence. A strong jaw and features that seemed both alien and somehow familiar in their expression of exhaustion. The Kathrani warrior looked at him with something like confusion, mixed with irritation. When she spoke, her voice came out rough and accented, but clear. "Are you hurt?" I said. Marcus repeated his question. The warrior stood up to her full height. She reached for the clasps on her chest plate and released them with quick, practiced movements. The heavy armor fell away to reveal the combat suit underneath. No blood. No visible injuries. Just fatigue in every line of her. "Body, do I look hurt to you?" the alien said. With an edge of bitterness in her voice, Marcus felt foolish, standing there with his medical kit, while this warrior clearly needed rest more than treatment, but something in her tone caught his attention. It was not just irritation. It was something deeper. Almost like she was offended by his concern itself. "You collapsed," Marcus said carefully. "I thought you might be injured." The Kathrani picked up her helmet and held it under one arm. She studied Marcus with those strange vertical eyes. "I am Commander Solara of the 3rd Fleet. Kathrani do not accept assistance for weakness. We fight until victory or we die with honor. There is no middle path." "That sounds like a good way to have a lot of dead soldiers," Marcus said before he could stop himself. Solara's eyes narrowed. "Dead soldiers are better than weak ones who drag down the strong. Your human way of coddling the injured makes your entire species soft." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. This was not the time or place for a philosophical argument. The battle still raged around them, and they were exposed. Here in the open, look, we can argue about medical philosophy later, but right now, we should both find better cover before. Words died in his throat as new explosions erupted. From the north side of the battlefield, different weapons, different sounds. Marcus recognized them immediately, and his blood went cold. "Raiders," he said. Solara's expression changed. The irritation vanished and was replaced by cold calculation. She put her helmet back on in one smooth motion. The scavenger faction. They wait for both sides to weaken, then move in to take what they want. Raiders were the worst kind of enemy. They had no honor and no rules. They killed everyone and took everything. Neither humans nor Kathrani wanted them on Threshold. But fighting them meant a temporary truce with your current enemy. Marcus pulled his sidearm. It felt small and useless in his hand, but it was better than nothing. Solara raised her heavy weapon and took a defensive position. Stay behind me, human medic. If you die here, I will be dishonored for allowing it after you showed concern for my welfare. Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity of the situation. Minutes ago, they were enemies. Now this alien warrior was offering to protect him. He moved up beside her instead of behind. I can shoot, he said. Clearly you cannot follow simple instructions either, Solara replied, but there was almost something like amusement in her voice. The raiders came in fast with light vehicles and heavy weapons. Marcus and Solara fought side by side in the smoke and fire. He used his smaller weapon to target weak points while she laid down heavy covering fire. They moved together without speaking and found a rhythm that worked. When the raiders finally pulled back, Marcus was breathing hard and his ears were ringing from the noise. Solara lowered her weapon and turned to look at him. She reached into a compartment on her armor and pulled out a small container. She offered it to Marcus. Water ration. You are dehydrated. Your aim suffered because of it. Marcus took the container with shaking hands. Thanks. Solara nodded once. Then she turned and walked into the smoke without another word. Marcus stood there alone and watched her disappear. His mind was racing with questions about the strange encounter. He looked down at the Kathrani water container in his hand and wondered what had just happened. The battle continued around him, but something had changed. Marcus put the container in his kit and went back to finding wounded soldiers. But part of his mind stayed on the alien commander who thought concern was weakness, who had just saved his life anyway. War made strange moments possible. This was definitely one of them. Part 2. The translation. Problem 3 days after the battle, Marcus found himself on his knees in the mud with his hands bound behind his back. The Kathrani raid on the human outpost had been fast and brutal. Most of his unit was dead. The survivors knelt in a row waiting to learn their fate. Kathrani soldiers walked down the line examining prisoners. Marcus kept his eyes down and tried to control his breathing. He had heard stories about Kathrani prison camps. None of them were good stories. Heavy footsteps stopped in front of him. Marcus looked up slowly and his heart jumped. Commander Solara stood there in full armor with her helmet off. She looked down at him with an unreadable expression. You, she said. Come with me. 2 guards pulled Marcus to his feet and dragged him away from the other prisoners. They took him to a small building that had survived the fighting. Inside was a single room with a table and 2 chairs. Solara dismissed the guards, and they left. Marcus alone with her. She cut the bindings on his wrists with a knife that was almost as long as his forearm. Marcus rubbed feeling back into his hands and waited. Solara sat down and gestured for him to do the same. Why do humans waste resources on the wounded? She said without preamble. Explain this to me. Marcus blinked at the question. Of all the things he expected her to ask, this was not on the list, because every life has value. We do not abandon people just because they are hurt. Value. Solara repeated the word, like she was tasting something bitter. What value does a wounded soldier have? They cannot fight. They consume medical supplies and time. They slow down healthy warriors. In what way is this valuable? Marcus searched for the right words. A wounded soldier can heal and fight again. But more than that, we save them because it is the right thing to do. Because we believe that compassion makes us stronger, not weaker. Solara leaned back in her chair. For a long moment, she just studied him with those vertical pupils. Then she began to speak. My people come from a world you would call a death world. Everything on our planet evolved to kill everything else. The oceans had predators that could swallow ships. The land had creatures with armor thick enough to stop any weapon. Even the plants were dangerous. She paused, and her expression grew distant. Kathrani survived because we were harder than everything that tried to kill us. We learned that weakness meant death. Not just for the weak individual, but for everyone around them. A wounded warrior who could not keep up with the group would attract predators. Those predators would kill the wounded, and then kill everyone else. Marcus listened without interrupting. He was starting to understand. So we developed a culture that eliminated compassion, Solara continued. We left the wounded behind. We killed the sick before they could spread disease. We culled the weak from every generation. It was brutal, but it kept us alive. It made us strong enough to leave our world and build an empire. But you are not on that world anymore, Marcus said quietly. No, we are not. But the culture remains. It is who we are. Commotion outside interrupted them. Shouts in the Kathrani language. Sounds of someone in pain. Solara stood quickly and went to the door. Marcus followed in the compound yard. A Kathrani soldier lay on the ground. Blood pooled beneath him from a wound in his side. Other soldiers stood around watching, but no one moved to help. The wounded soldier reached out with one hand, but no one took it. Marcus felt his training take over. He moved before thinking and pushed through the circle of watching Kathrani. He dropped to his knees beside the wounded soldier and opened his medical kit. What are you doing? Solara's voice was sharp behind him. Saving his life, Marcus said. His hands worked fast. The wound was bad, but not impossible. He had the bleeding stopped in less than a minute. I ordered you not to interfere. You can execute me after I finish, Marcus said. He kept working. The Kathrani soldier looked up at him with wide eyes full of confusion and something that might have been hope. Marcus stabilized the wound and gave the soldier something for pain. Then he sat back and looked up at Solara. Done. She stared at him. Around them, the other Kathrani soldiers muttered to each other. Some looked angry. Others looked uncertain. The wounded soldier on the ground tried to speak, but his voice was too weak. One of the watching soldiers stepped forward. He was older than the others, with scars across his scaled face. Commander, that soldier is my son. The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus watched Solara's expression change as she understood the implications. The older soldier looked at Marcus and then at his son. His hands clenched into fists. The human saved him. The older soldier said slowly, Why would an enemy do this? Because he is insane, one of the other soldiers said. Or it is a trick. No trick, Marcus said. He stood up and faced them. I save people because that is what I do, enemy or not. Your lives have value whether you believe it or not. The older soldier looked at Solara. My family has served the Third Fleet for 6 generations, Commander. We have influence in the capital. The Council will hear about this. Solara closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, Marcus saw that she had made a decision. Take your son to the medical bay, she ordered. The human will show you how to care for the wound. The older soldier and 2 others carefully lifted the wounded Kathrani. They looked at Marcus and waited. He picked up his kit and followed them. That night, Marcus worked in the Kathrani medical bay teaching alien soldiers how to treat injuries they had been trained to ignore. They were clumsy at first, and some were clearly uncomfortable with the entire concept. But they learned. Solara watched from the doorway. She did not participate, but she did not stop it either. When the last soldier left, Marcus cleaned his equipment and prepared for whatever came next. Solara approached him. The older soldier whose son you saved is related to a High Council member, she said. Killing you would create a political problem for me now. So what happens to me? You escaped during processing, Solara said. At least that is what my report will say. There is a gap in the fence on the east side. Guards will be busy elsewhere for the next 10 minutes. Why are you doing this? Because in Kathrani culture, if someone saves a life from our family, we owe them a life debt. You saved that soldier. His father vouched for you. By our oldest laws, I cannot kill someone my unit owes a debt to. She walked to the door and opened it. Then she looked back at him. Also, you make me question things I have never questioned before. I find this disturbing. Leave now, before I change my mind. Marcus grabbed his kit and ran for the door. He stopped beside her for just a second. Thank you. Do not thank me, human medic, We are still enemies. Next time we meet, I may have to kill you. My name is Marcus. Marcus Chen. I know. Go. Marcus ran into the night. Behind him, Solara watched until he disappeared into the darkness. Then she returned to her command center and tried to understand why she felt relief instead of regret. The war continued. But something between two soldiers had changed in ways neither of them fully understood yet. Part 3. The epidemic. The sickness started quietly. One soldier with a fever, then 3 more, then dozens. Within a week, it was everywhere. Marcus stood in the crowded medical tent and watched another patient die. The young soldier had been healthy that morning. Now she was gone. Blood had poured from her eyes and nose in the final minutes. Her organs had shut down one by one, while Marcus tried everything he knew to save her. That is the 15th today, Dr. Sarah Kim said beside him. Her voice was hollow with exhaustion. We have lost more people to this disease in 1 week than we lost in the last 2 months of fighting. Marcus pulled off his bloody gloves and threw them in the waste bin. His hands were shaking. Have we heard anything from command about what this is? No, they are dealing with their own outbreak at the northern base. Everyone is sick, Marcus. And it is not just us. She pulled up a report on her tablet and showed him. Kathrani forces were reporting similar symptoms. Similar death rates? The disease was killing both sides equally. This does not make sense, Marcus said. Human and Kathrani biology are completely different. A disease that affects both species should not be possible, unless it was designed that way, Sarah said quietly. Marcus looked at her sharply. You think this is artificial? I think it is too convenient. Too perfectly lethal. Someone wanted both sides weakened. Before Marcus could respond, alarms started blaring. Another patient was crashing. He ran to help but knew it was already too late. They were losing this fight. That night, Marcus sat alone in his quarters and stared at blood samples under his portable microscope. The disease looked familiar. The hemorrhaging pattern reminded him of something from Earth, an old virus that humans had learned to treat centuries ago. If he was right, then he could develop a cure. But he would need more information. He would need biological data from Kathrani patients to compare. And that data only existed in Kathrani medical archives. Marcus made a decision that was probably going to get him killed. He left the base after midnight and moved through the contested zone between human and Kathrani territory. It took him 3 hours of careful movement to reach Kathrani lines. He had memorized the location of their main medical facility from intelligence reports. Getting inside was harder than he expected. Security was tight, but chaos from the outbreak worked in his favor. Guards were distracted by 6 soldiers being brought in constantly. Marcus slipped through a side entrance, followed signs he could not read but recognized from medical universal symbols. He was searching for their data archives when a voice spoke behind him. I wondered if you would try something this foolish. He turned slowly. Solara stood in the corridor wearing a medical isolation suit. But even through the clear faceplate, Marcus could see the signs. Bloodshot eyes. Pale skin under her scales. A slight tremor in her hands. She was infected. You are sick, Marcus said. Yes, for 2 days now. Solara moved closer but kept her distance. In a few more hours, I will be too weak to function. By tomorrow, I will be dead. I can help you. That is why I am here. Solara laughed, but it turned into a cough. Of course you are. The human medic who cannot let anyone die, even enemies. This disease, Marcus said urgently. I think I know what it is, or at least something similar from Earth. But I need your medical data to confirm. I need access to Kathrani biological information to create a cure. We do not have cures. We have quarantine and elimination protocols. Solara leaned against the wall. 3 units have already been sealed and sterilized. Everyone inside killed to prevent spread. That is not necessary. Please, Solara, let me see your archives. She studied him for a long moment. Then she pushed off the wall and started walking. Follow me quickly. Solara led him deeper into the facility. Her steps were unsteady now. Twice, She had to stop and breathe through waves of pain, but she kept moving. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus asked. "Because you are correct. This is not natural. Someone created this. The pattern is too perfect. It targets specific biological systems that both our species share despite our differences." She accessed a door with her command codes. Inside was a massive data center. Here, all our medical research. Biological profiles of every Kathrani subspecies. Take what you need. Marcus got to work immediately. He connected his portable system to their network and started pulling data. The pieces came together quickly once he had both human and Kathrani biological markers to compare. "I was right," he said. "This is based on an old Earth hemorrhagic virus, but it has been modified, weaponized," someone added. "Kathrani genetic targeting to make it work on both species. Can you cure it?" "I think so. The original Earth version was treatable. If I can synthesize the right compounds," he looked at her, "I need to use you as a test subject. You are far enough along that if the cure works on you, it will work on anyone." Solara nodded. "Do it." Marcus worked faster than he had ever worked before. He used their medical synthesizer to create compounds he hoped would work. His hands moved through procedures he half remembered from medical school, all while Solara got weaker. She collapsed once. Marcus caught her before she hit the floor and helped her to a medical bed. Blood ran from her nose. Her breathing was shallow. "Tell me about your world," she said suddenly. "The one with the old virus." Marcus kept working while he talked. Earth almost died from it once. Millions of people got sick, but we learned. We developed treatments. We saved each other. We would have just killed the infected. "I know. But maybe that is not the only way to be strong." He finished the synthesis and loaded it into an injector. His hands were steady now, despite everything. He had done this 1,000 times. But never with stakes this high. "This might not work," he said. "I am guessing based on limited information, and I will die either way. Give me the injection."
Yes.
Marcus pressed the injector against her arm. The medicine went into her system. Now they waited. For 10 minutes, nothing changed. Then 15. Marcus watched the monitors and felt hope dying. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe it was too late then. Solara's breathing steadied. The bleeding slowed. Color started returning to her face. "It is working," Marcus said. His voice cracked. "It is actually working." The door burst open. Kathrani soldiers in full combat gear rushed in with weapons raised. They saw Marcus standing over their commander and immediately assumed the worst. "Step away from her," the lead soldier ordered. "Wait," Solara's voice was weak but clear. "He is helping me. He found a cure." The soldiers hesitated. They looked at their commander connected to monitors with a human standing over her. It looked very bad from their perspective. "Commander, you are not thinking clearly," the soldier said. "The infection has affected your judgment. This human has infiltrated our medical facility. He must be responsible." "No." Solara tried to sit up. "You do not understand. He saved my life." Marcus raised his hands. "I can cure this disease. All of you. Both sides. But you need to let me finish." The soldier looked uncertain. He kept his weapon trained on Marcus but did not fire. Other soldiers crowded into the room now. Some of them looked sick too. "Look at your commander," Marcus said. "She was dying. Now she is recovering. I can do the same for everyone. But I need your medical team to help me mass-produce the cure." The soldier looked at Solara. She nodded at him. "Do it," she ordered. "That is a command. Help him." The next hours passed in a blur. Marcus worked with Kathrani medical staff to produce enough cure for both their forces and human forces. He sent encrypted messages to Human Command with the formula. Within a day, production facilities on both sides were manufacturing the medicine. The epidemic ended almost as quickly as it started once treatment began. Death rates dropped. Recovery rates climbed. And everyone started asking the same question. Who had released the disease in the first place, Marcus? stood with Solara on a balcony overlooking the medical facility. She was weak, but recovering. Most of her color had returned. Intelligence traced the origin point, she said. It came from Raider territory. They wanted both our armies weakened so they could move in.
Nice.
Did it work? No. Because of you. She looked at him. You refused to let me die. You risked everything to find a cure. Why? Because that is what we do. Humans do not let people die when we can save them. Not even enemies. Solara was quiet for a moment. My subordinates are confused. Some think you are a spy. Others think you are insane. But all of them watched you save my life and then save theirs. This has never happened before. What do you think? Marcus asked. I think you have shown me that strength comes in forms I never considered, and I think that makes you dangerous in ways beyond weapons. She smiled slightly. Thank you, Marcus Chen, for being stubborn enough to care. Below them in the compound, Kathrani soldiers were helping sick humans evacuate to treatment centers. Enemies working together because one medic refused to accept death as the only option. War continued around them. But something fundamental had shifted, and both of them could feel it. Part 4. Cultural Revolution word spread through the Kathrani Empire faster than the disease had. The human medic who refused to let their commander die, the cure that saved thousands. Young Kathrani soldiers started, whispering about it in their barracks when officers were not listening. Marcus noticed the change 3 weeks. After the epidemic ended, he was working at the forward medical station when a Kathrani soldier approached in the darkness. The alien looked around nervously before speaking. Human medic. I need help. Marcus stood up from his supply inventory. Are you sick? My leg. Training injury. It will not heal properly. The soldier lifted his pant leg to show a wound that had become infected. I cannot report it. Admitting injury is weakness. Marcus looked at the young soldier's face. He was barely more than a kid. Maybe 20 in human years if Kathrani aged the same way. Come inside. I will treat it. Over the next week, 5 more Kathrani came. All young. All hiding injuries they were too afraid to report to their own medical staff. Marcus treated them and sent them back. He did not ask questions, and they did not explain why they trusted him, but command noticed the pattern. Captain Rodriguez called Marcus into his office on a cold morning. The captain's face was hard. We have been monitoring Kathrani communications. They are talking about you, Chen, calling you the human who fights death. Some of their young soldiers are seeking you out for medical treatment. They are hurt, sir. I help people who are hurt. They are the enemy. Rodriguez slammed his hand on the desk. You are fraternizing with enemy combatants. You are undermining our military objectives. And frankly, you are making command very nervous. What do you want me to do? Let them die. I want you to remember which side you are on. Marcus left the office with a bad feeling in his stomach. He understood the captain's concern, but he could not turn away wounded soldiers just because of what uniform they wore. Meanwhile, in Kathrani territory, Commander Solara faced her own problems. She stood in front of a tribunal of high-ranking officers. They sat behind a long table and looked at her with cold expressions. The charges were serious. Accepting help from an enemy, allowing cultural contamination, deviating from established military protocol. You allowed a human to access our medical archives, one officer said. You cooperated with an enemy combatant. You have infected your entire unit with dangerous ideas about compassion and weakness. Solara kept her expression neutral. That human saved my life and the lives of thousands of our soldiers. The alternative was death. Death with honor is preferable to survival through weakness. Is it, Solara stepped forward, that human showed a different kind of strength? He fought death itself and won. He risked his life to save enemies. That requires courage we do not teach in our training. Requires foolishness. Another officer interrupted. He should have let you die. That would have been the logical choice, but he did not. And because of that choice, both our forces survived. The raiders who released the disease are the ones who showed weakness. They attacked from the shadows with biological weapons because they could not face us directly. The tribunal members looked at each other. They were not convinced, but they were uncertain. Before they could continue, the doors to the chamber burst open. A Kathrani warrior entered. She was old and scarred with decorations that marked her as a hero of past wars. She walked with a cane, but her presence filled the room. General Kira. The head of the tribunal stood. This is unexpected. I heard my former student was being tried for the crime of surviving. The general's voice was hard. I came to see if this was true. Commander Solara accepted help from an enemy. She has begun implementing medical protocols in her unit. Young soldiers are questioning our traditions because of her example. Good, the general said. Our traditions almost killed us all. I was infected by that disease. I was prepared to die as our culture demands. Then a human I have never met created a cure and saved my life. Now you want to punish the one who made that possible. She turned to face Solara. What you have done is heresy. It goes against everything we were taught. But I have been a warrior for 60 years, and I know strength when I see it. The human medic has a different strength than ours. Perhaps we should learn from it instead of fearing it. I cannot mean that, the tribunal head said. If we start accepting help, we become weak. Our entire civilization is built on self-reliance. Our entire civilization is dying, the general shot back. We have expanded across dozens of worlds, but we are not growing stronger. We are stagnant. This human has shown us a path we never considered. She looked at Solara again. I taught you to fight, to never show weakness, to win at any cost. Now, I am going to teach you something new. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is protect others instead of just yourself. The tribunal dismissed Solara without punishment, but the damage was done. Word spread about the trial. Young Kathroni started openly discussing human medical practices. Some of the older warriors saw this as corruption. Others saw it as evolution. The conflict came to a head. One night in the neutral zone, Marcus was returning from treating soldiers at an outpost when he heard weapons fire. He dropped behind cover and tried to see what was happening. Dark figures moved in the darkness. Then he saw Solara fighting against other Kathrani. She was outnumbered 3-1. The attackers wore no unit markings. Assassins, Marcus did not think. He just moved. He came up behind one attacker and hit him with his medical kit. The Kathrani spun and backhanded Marcus across the face. He flew backwards and hit the ground hard. Solara used the distraction. She disarmed one attacker and threw him into another. But the third one came at her with a blade. She blocked it, but barely. You have become weak, Solara, the attacker said. You care more about human ideas than Kathroni honor. I am here to correct that mistake. Marcus recognized the voice. It was one of the tribunal members. A conservative who had argued for Solara's execution. Solara and her former teacher circled each other. You think caring makes me weak? Let me show you how wrong you are. The fight that followed was brutal. Solara fought with everything she had, but this was different than before. She was not just trying to win. She was trying to protect Marcus, who was struggling to his feet behind her. The old warrior noticed. You fight to protect an enemy. This is proof of your corruption. No, Solara blocked a strike and countered. This is proof that I learned something new. Strength is not just about killing. It is about protecting what matters. She disarmed her opponent with a move Marcus did not follow. The blade spun away into the darkness. The old warrior stood defenseless. Kill me then, he said. Prove you are still Kathrani. Solara lowered her weapon. No, I am going to let you live, because that is what Marcus would do. And I think he might be right. The old warrior stared at her in shock. Then he spat at her feet and walked away into the night. The other attackers followed him. Marcus limped over to Solara. His face was swelling where he had been hit. Are you okay? I should ask you that. You just attacked a Kathroni warrior with a medical kit. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Solara laughed despite everything. Then her expression turned serious. This is not over, Marcus. There are many who see what I am doing as betrayal. They will try again. Then we will deal with it. We. She repeated the word. When did this become we? I do not know. Somewhere between you saving my life and me saving yours. Before either could say more, alarms started blaring from multiple directions. Emergency channels lit up with distress calls. Marcus grabbed his communicator and listened. His blood went cold. "The Raiders," he said. "They are launching a major offensive, hitting both our forces at the same time." Solara pulled up tactical data on her wrist device. "They have a planet-killer weapon. If they use it, everyone on this world dies. Human and Catherine alike." They looked at each other. The same thought occurred to both of them simultaneously. "We need to work together," Marcus said. "Yes, but convincing both our commands to cooperate." Solara shook her head. "That will be harder than curing the plague." "Then we better start now." They ran together toward the communication outpost. Behind them, the sky lit up with explosions as the Raider assault began. Enemies becoming allies because one medic refused to accept that caring was weakness, and one warrior learned that protecting others was its own kind of strength. The real battle was just beginning. Part 5. Armor comes in many forms. The Joint Command Center was chaos. Human officers shouted at Cathrani commanders. Cathrani commanders shouted back. Nobody trusted anyone, and the Raiders were getting closer with every minute that passed. Marcus stood in the middle of it all and tried to make himself heard over the noise. "We are running out of time. The planet-killer weapon will be in range in 4 hours. After that, everyone on this world dies. Working with Cathrani is suicide," Captain Rodriguez said. "How do we know this is not a trap? Because we are dying too." Solara stepped forward. "The Raiders do not distinguish between human and Cathrani. We are both targets. We can fight each other and die separately, or work together and maybe survive. Your people tried to kill you 3 days ago." A human colonel pointed at Solara. "Your own species does not trust you. Why should we?" Solara's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. "Because Commander Chen earned that trust. He saved my life and the lives of my soldiers when he had no reason to. If a human can do that, then we can learn to fight beside them." "Marcus is one person," Rodriguez said. "He does not represent human military policy, and maybe he should." General Kira entered the command center. The old Cathrani warrior moved slowly, but everyone stopped to look at her. "I've fought humans for 2 years. I know your tactics and your weaknesses. But I also know something else now. You do not leave your wounded behind. You protect each other even when it is inconvenient. That is a strength we never developed." She turned to the Cathrani commanders. "I am ordering 3rd Fleet to coordinate with human forces. We will establish joint operations against the Raider threat. Anyone who refuses this order will be relieved of command." The Cathrani officers looked shocked, but they nodded. General Kira's authority was absolute. On the human side, Captain Rodriguez looked at his fellow officers. Then he sighed. "All right. We will coordinate. But I want it on record that I think this is insane." "Noted," Marcus said. "Now we need to move fast." The battle plan came together quickly once both sides started sharing information. Cathrani had superior ships and weapons. Humans had better tactical flexibility and small unit coordination. Together, they could hit the Raider base before the planet killer charged. Marcus volunteered for the ground assault team. Solara tried to stop him. "You're a medic. Not a combat soldier? I am going." Marcus checked his gear. Those Raiders killed thousands with their disease. "I am not letting them kill millions more. Stubborn human." But Solara smiled slightly. "Fine, you stay close to me." The combined assault force moved out at dawn. Human soldiers fought beside Cathrani warriors. It was awkward at first. Communication was difficult. Trust was fragile. But they made it work. The Raider base was heavily defended. Automated turrets tore through the first wave of attackers. Marcus saw soldiers from both sides fall. He wanted to stop and help them, but the mission came first. They pushed deeper into the base. Cathrani, heavy weapons cleared paths. Human strike teams flanked and eliminated strong points. It was brutal and costly, but effective. Marcus stayed close to Solara, as promised. She fought with controlled fury. Every enemy she dropped was one less threat to her people. And now her people included the humans fighting beside her. They reached the central reactor where the planet killer drew its power. The plan was simple: overload the reactor and destroy the weapon before it could fire. But the raiders had one last surprise. A massive war machine emerged from a hidden bay. It was 3 stories tall, with weapons that could level buildings. The combined force scattered as it opened fire. "We need to disable that thing," Solara shouted over the noise. "Marcus, stay back." But Marcus saw the problem. Kathrani soldiers were pinned down by crossfire. They could not reach cover without exposing themselves. Someone needed to draw the war machine's attention. He made a decision that was definitely going to get him killed. Marcus ran straight at the war machine, firing his weapon. It was useless against the armor, but it got attention. The machine turned to track him. Its main gun started charging. "Marcus, no." Solara's voice came through his communicator. He kept running. Kathrani soldiers used the distraction to break for cover. Most of them made it. But the war machine's gun finished charging and fired. Marcus felt the impact before the pain registered. He flew backwards and hit the ground hard. His armor was shredded. Blood spread across his chest. He could not breathe properly. Through blurring vision, he saw Solara running toward him. She was screaming orders at her unit. Kathrani soldiers threw everything they had at the war machine to keep it away from Marcus's Solara, reached him, and dropped to her knees. She pulled medical supplies from her belt. Her hands were shaking. "Stay with me. Do not die. Do not you dare die." Getting shot was not part of the plan. Marcus tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. Blood filled his mouth. "Why did you do that?" Solara worked frantically. She was using techniques he had taught her. "You should have stayed in cover. Your soldiers were trapped. I just did what you do. Protected people who needed it." Solara's hands stilled for a moment. Then she kept working. Around them, the battle raged. Kathrani and human soldiers fought with desperate coordination. The war machine was damaged, but still firing. "I cannot fix this here," Solara said. Her voice cracked. "You need real medical facilities. But if I move you now, you will die. Then I die." Marcus reached up and touched her arm. "But you finished the mission. Destroy that weapon." "No, I am not leaving you, Solara. No." She looked at him with something fierce in her eyes. "You taught me that caring is not weakness. You showed me that protecting others is strength. I am not abandoning those lessons now." She lifted Marcus carefully. He screamed from the pain. She carried him toward cover while enemy fire rained around them. Kathrani soldiers formed a protective circle. They fired at anything that came close. A human squad saw what was happening and moved to help. Together, they got Marcus to a defensible position. Solara set him down and went back to treating his wounds. "You are insane," Marcus said weakly. "That was tactically stupid. Yes, I learned it from you." Their medics arrived, both human and Kathrani. They worked together on Marcus while Solara coordinated the final assault on the war machine. She fought differently now. Not just to win, but to protect the soldiers under her command. The war machine fell, eventually. Combined fire from both forces took it apart piece by piece. With the main defense down, the assault teams reached the reactor and set charges. The evacuation was frantic. Everyone ran for the extraction point while the reactor counted down. Marcus was on a stretcher carried by 4 soldiers, 2 human. To Kathrani, they made it out with seconds to spare. The explosion lit up the sky behind them. The planet killer weapon died before it could fire. 3 days later, Marcus woke up in a medical facility. He was wrapped in bandages and connected to monitors. His entire body hurt. Solara sat in a chair beside his bed. She looked exhausted. When she saw his eyes open, she stood up. "Welcome back." "Did we win?" Marcus's voice was rough. "Yes, the raiders are scattered. Their weapon is destroyed. Human and Kathrani forces are maintaining joint operations to clean up what remains." "Good." He tried to sit up, but pain stopped him. Solara helped him adjust the bed. "You are dying, Marcus." The medics said you should not have survived. But you are too stubborn, apparently. I learned from the best." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why did you risk the mission to save me?" "Your culture says you should have let me die." Solara looked away. "My culture also said compassion is weakness and that caring for others makes you vulnerable. But I watched you prove that wrong over and over. You fought death itself and won. You made me question everything I was taught." "What?" She stood and walked to the window. Outside, Kathrani and human soldiers worked side by side on reconstruction. "That first day we met, I was dying, internal bleeding from combat injuries, but I wore my armor and pretended to be strong because that is what Kathrani do. When you asked if I was hurt, I lied. 'Do I look hurt to you?' I said. But I was hurt. I was dying. I just could not admit it." She turned back to face him. "You taught me that armor protects the body, but it also prevents connection. Real strength is letting people help you. Accepting care does not make you weak. It makes you human. Or it makes you the kind of Kathrani I want to be." Marcus smiled despite the pain. "Are you hurt, Commander Solara?" She reached up and released the clasps on her armor. The heavy plates fell away. She stood there in her basic uniform without protection. Scars covered her arms. Old wounds she had hidden with metal. "Yes, I have been hurt many times. But I am healing now." She picked up a data pad. "The Kathroni High Council has authorized creation of medical corps. They want me to lead it. They also want you to help train Kathrani medics in human techniques. You started a revolution, Marcus. Young Kathroni are questioning traditions that stood for thousands of years. They want to learn how to protect each other instead of just themselves. This is because of you." Marcus processed this. "What about your people who think caring is weakness? Some will never change. But others saw what we accomplished together. They saw that protecting each other made us stronger, not weaker. Change is happening slowly, but it is happening." She sat back down beside his bed. "You asked me once why I do things. Now I ask you, why do you care so much? Why risk everything for enemies?" Marcus thought about it. "Because every life has value. Because compassion is not weakness. Because someone has to be stubborn enough to fight for others, even when it is hard. Even when it seems impossible. Those are good reasons." They sat quietly while medical monitors beeped around them. Outside the window, the sun was setting over a world that had almost died. Now it had a chance to heal. Weeks later, Marcus stood in a ceremony attended by both human and Kathroni leadership. They gave him medals and made speeches about courage and cooperation. He barely heard any of it. Solara stood beside him in new armor. Lighter than before, with medical symbols instead of combat decorations. She looked uncomfortable with all the attention. "Are you hurt?" Marcus whispered to her. She looked at him and smiled. "Do I look hurt to you?" But this time when she said it, there was warmth in her voice. Understanding. Trust. "Yes," Marcus said. "We are all hurt. But we are healing together." "Good answer, human medic." The ceremony ended and people dispersed. Marcus and Solara walked together through the rebuilt compound. Kathrani and human soldiers nodded to them as they passed. Some stopped to thank Marcus for saving their lives. "Do you ever regret it?" Solara asked. "Everything you sacrificed. Everything you risked." Marcus looked at the people around them. Enemies who had become allies. Two species learning to work together. All because someone refused to accept that caring was weakness. No regrets. He said, "This is who I am. This is who we can be." Solara removed her helmet and held it under her arm. She stood beside him without armor between them. "Then let us continue this work. Together. Together," Marcus agreed. They walked into the future side by side. A human medic who taught an empire about compassion, and a warrior who learned that the strongest armor was the courage to care. Both of them scarred, both of them healing. Both of them proof that strength comes in many forms, and the greatest strength of all is refusing to let others face darkness alone.